The morning sun burned hot over Lagos, painting the market streets gold and dusty. The sound of traders shouting mixed with the loud horns of buses, the chatter of women haggling, and the rhythmic clang of metal pots from a nearby stall. In the middle of all that chaos stood an old woman. Her wrapper was faded and torn, her blouse had stains. Her slippers looked like they could break any moment. Her face was wrinkled, her hair messy, and in her hands was a dirty nylon bag that looked too heavy for her fragile arms. People were staring, some covered their noses, some turned away. But the old woman didn't care. She looked weak, hungry, and lost. But her eyes were not the eyes of an ordinary beggar. They were calm, watching, studying. "Madam, I beg, small food, even if no rice water," she whispered, stretching her hand toward a group of young ladies laughing beside a tomato stand. The girls looked at her, then burst into laughter. "God forbid," one of them said. "You this old woman, you go just a waka anyhow they beg." "Go sit down, Jer," another girl snapped her fingers and hissed. "See as she smell. Even my dog no go near you." Their laughter was loud enough to make people turn. The old woman lowered her head and whispered softly, "God bless you, my daughters." But inside her heart broke a little. She turned slowly and walked away, her slippers scraping the ground. At that moment, a fruit from her nylon bag dropped and rolled on the dusty floor. A few people laughed again. One voice, however, cut through the noise. "Wait, Mama!" Everyone turned. A tall young lady was walking quickly toward the old woman. She wore a plain yellow dress and a small black scarf on her head. Her skin glowed even under the sun, and her face had no makeup, just kindness. She bent down, picked up the fruit, and placed it back into the woman's nylon bag. "Are you okay, Mama?" she asked gently. "You look tired. Have you eaten today?" The old woman's lips trembled. "My daughter, not yet." The young lady smiled softly. "Hold on." She opened her small handbag and brought out a few notes. "Here, Mama, take this and get something to eat." The old woman took the money with shaking hands. Her eyes glistened. "What is your name, my daughter?" she asked. "Grace," the young lady replied. "Grace Nwankwo." The old woman smiled. Truly, you have grace in your heart." Grace laughed lightly. "It's nothing, Mama. You don't have to thank me. Just eat. Okay?" As Grace turned to leave, the old woman whispered something under her breath. "If only you knew who I really am, my daughter." That same night, in a luxurious mansion far from the noisy streets of Lagos, the same old beggar sat in a king-sized bed, her hair now neatly packed, her clothes replaced with a silky robe. Her wrinkled hands looked clean, her skin glowing under soft golden light. She wasn't a beggar. She was Mrs. Gregg, mother of Leonard Gregg, one of the youngest billionaires in Nigeria, owner of Gregg Holdings, a company known across Africa. But tonight, her heart was heavy. She sat quietly, remembering every insult she had heard that morning. Her eyes welled up again, not from pain, but from disappointment. So many girls had mocked her, not knowing that the beggar they laughed at was worth billions. Her personal assistant, Anita, knocked lightly and stepped inside. "Ma, I've prepared your tea." "Thank you, Anita," Mrs. Gregg said softly. She picked up her phone and stared at her son's picture on the screen. Tall, handsome, always serious. Leonard was brilliant, but after his last heartbreak, he had become cold. The woman he once loved, Cynthia, had only wanted his money. When he discovered her betrayal, he had nearly lost trust in every woman. Now he buried himself in work, pushing everyone away. That was why Mrs. Gregg had decided to take matters into her own hands. She had dressed like a beggar that morning to see what kind of women were out there. Not the ones who pretended to be good in expensive restaurants, but the ones who showed real kindness when no one was watching. And she had found one, Grace. The name alone echoed in her heart. "Grace," she whispered, "you're different. You didn't laugh at me. You didn't look down on me. Maybe, just maybe, you are the one." Her phone buzzed. It was Leonard. "Good evening, Mum," his calm voice came through. "Are you okay? Anita said you didn't go for your medical appointment." "I'm fine, my dear," she lied gently, "just tired." "Mum, please rest. You don't have to worry about anything." Mrs. Gregg smiled. "Oh, my son, if only you knew how much I'm worrying. For you." Leonard chuckled faintly. "Mum, I'm fine. I don't need anyone right now. I've told you, I'm done with relationships." But she shook her head even though he couldn't see her. "We'll see about that," she murmured after the call ended. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking of Grace, her warm eyes, her humble smile, her soft voice. Tomorrow she decided she would find Grace again. But unknown to her, someone else had seen her that morning, a man standing across the road, snapping pictures, and by the next day, those pictures would spread across social media with the caption, "Lagos madwoman seen begging around Yaba market." The internet would laugh. No one knew that the madwoman in those photos was one of the richest women in the country. And soon, those pictures would cause a storm that would change Grace's life forever. By the next morning, the Lagos market was buzzing. Not because of sales, but because of a video. Someone had uploaded a clip on social media the night before. In the video, an old woman in dirty clothes was seen begging for food. The person filming her had zoomed in and added a laughing emoji at the corner. The caption read, "See this woman oh. She say she no chop since morning. Maybe na acting practice." People were laughing in the comments. Hundreds of shares, thousands of likes. By afternoon, it was on almost every gossip page. Lagos Beggar Challenge had even started trending. But no one knew that the woman in the video, the beggar everyone mocked, was Mrs. Gregg, one of the richest women in Lagos. Meanwhile, in her mansion, the video played on a large smart TV in the living room. Her personal assistant, Anita, stood quietly, not knowing how to break the silence. Mrs. Gregg sat on the couch, watching the video of herself begging on the street. Her heart ached, not because people mocked her, but because she realized how quick people were to judge the poor. Leonard walked into the living room at that exact moment, his phone in hand. "Mum," he began slowly, "please tell me this is not you." Mrs. Gregg turned to him, calm but firm. "It's me, Leonard." He blinked. "What?" "Mum, you're all over the internet. What were you thinking?" She sighed softly. "I was thinking about you." Leonard frowned, confused. "Me?" "Yes," she said. "You have everything money can buy, except love. You've allowed that past heartbreak to cage your heart. I wanted to see if there's still kindness left in this city. And I found it." Leonard shook his head. "So you pretended to be a beggar? Mum, what if someone had hurt you?" "This is not safe." Mrs. Gregg smiled faintly. "Don't worry, my dear. I wasn't hurt. In fact, I met someone special." Leonard's eyes narrowed. "Someone special?" "Yes," she said softly. "Her name is Grace." At that moment, far away in a small one-room apartment in Surulere, Grace sat by her window scrolling through her phone. When she saw the viral video, she gasped. Her heart dropped. That's the old woman from yesterday," she whispered. She quickly turned to her friend, Amaka, who was frying plantain nearby. "Amaka, come and see this video. It's the woman I gave money to yesterday at Yaba." Amaka rushed over, looked at the phone, and burst into laughter. "Ah, so na that mad woman you give money to?" she teased. "Grace, you too kindo. You know they fear scam beggars again?" Grace frowned. She didn't look mad, Amaka. She just looked lost. Her voice softened. "And even if she was mad, I can't ignore someone who needs help." Amaka rolled her eyes. "That's why you never have savings. Always helping everybody. This Lagos no-day reward good people." Grace smiled quietly and looked away. "Maybe one day it will." Back at the Gregg mansion, Leonard sat down beside his mother, still struggling to understand. "So this Grace," he said slowly, "what's so special about her?" Mrs. Gregg smiled gently. "When everyone insulted me, she didn't. She helped me. She didn't just give me money, she cared. She asked if I'd eaten. She called me Mama, like she meant it. Leonard, I saw something in her that I haven't seen in a long time. Pure kindness." Leonard sighed. "Mum, I know you want what's best for me. But please, I can't just meet a random girl because she was nice to you." His mother's smile turned knowing. "You said the same thing before your last heartbreak. Maybe it's time to open your heart again, slowly." Leonard hesitated, his face unreadable. And what if she's like the rest? What if she only acts kind because she wants something? Mrs. Gregg leaned closer. Then you'll see it with your own eyes. But if she's different, if she's real, you'll know too. I want you to meet her." Leonard sighed again, but didn't argue this time. "Fine, Mum. One meeting. Just one." 2 days later, Grace received a call from an unknown number. "Hello, who's this?" she asked, her tone careful. A woman's warm voice came through. "Hello, my daughter. It's me, the woman you helped at the market." Grace froze. "Mama?" "Yes, my dear," Mrs. Gregg said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I want to thank you properly. Can you come and visit me tomorrow morning? I live in Ikoyi." Grace blinked in disbelief. "Ikoyi? Mama, that place is expensive-o." Mrs. Gregg chuckled. "Don't worry, I'll send you a car." When Grace ended the call, Amaka almost dropped the spoon she was holding. Wait. So that woman is not poor?" I don't know," Grace said, still shocked. "She just said she wanted to thank me." Amaka crossed her arms. I don't trust it. Don't go alone." Grace smiled softly. She sounded kind. "I'll be fine." But deep inside, her heart was beating fast, not out of fear, but curiosity. She couldn't explain it, but something about that old woman's voice felt familiar and comforting. Little did Grace know, that visit would change her life forever. Because the mansion waiting for her in Ikoyi didn't belong to a random old woman. It belonged to the mother of one of the richest men in Nigeria. And that man, Leonard Gregg, was about to walk into the living room at the exact moment Grace stepped in. The next morning came bright and calm. A black SUV stopped in front of Grace's small house in Surulere. A uniformed driver stepped out and bowed slightly. "Good morning, Ma. Madam sent me to pick you up." Grace's jaw almost dropped. She looked back at Amaka, who whispered, "Ain? Pick you up, ka? Grace, you sure say you know they go for movie audition?" Grace shook her head, still confused. "No, she just said she wanted to thank me." "Well," Amaka said, folding her arms, "if they ask for your account number, I beg give them mine too." Grace laughed nervously and entered the car. As the SUV rolled away, she couldn't stop staring out the window. The streets of Lagos slowly changed from crowded shops to wide, quiet roads lined with palm trees and mansions. When the car finally stopped, Grace's heart skipped a beat. The gate of Gregg Villa opened, revealing a breathtaking mansion, tall glass windows, marble pillars, flowers neatly trimmed around a water fountain that sparkled under the morning sun. "Jesus," she whispered, almost afraid to step out. A maid rushed forward and smiled politely. "Good morning, Ma. Madam is expecting you." Grace's heart pounded faster. "Expecting me?" She followed the maid through the massive doorway, her eyes wide as she saw the chandelier that hung above the grand living room. The air smelled of fresh roses and expensive perfume. Then she saw her, the same woman from the market, but this time looking completely different. Her skin glowed. Her hair was styled beautifully. She wore a long flowing gold gown and diamond earrings. Grace froze. "Mama," she whispered. Mrs. Gregg smiled warmly. "My dear Grace, welcome to my home." Grace blinked. "Your home?" "Yes," Mrs. Gregg said, walking toward her. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth earlier. I wanted to see people's hearts, not their eyes. I'm not poor, Grace. My name is Mrs. Gregg." Grace covered her mouth in shock. "You mean you're that Mrs. Gregg? The businesswoman everyone talks about on TV?" Mrs. Gregg chuckled softly. "Yes, my dear." Grace suddenly felt her knees weaken. "Oh my God, Mama, please forgive me if I disrespected you in any way." Mrs. Gregg interrupted gently, holding her hand. "No, my daughter, you did the opposite. When others mocked me, you showed kindness. That's something I can never forget." Grace smiled nervously, her eyes still darting around the room. "This place is so beautiful. I've never been in a house like this." Before Mrs. Gregg could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed down the staircase. Grace turned, and her breath caught in her throat. A tall man in a dark blue shirt and black trousers was walking down the stairs. His presence filled the room instantly. His face was calm but strong, his eyes deep and steady, like he carried the world on his shoulders. It was Leonard Gregg. He stopped halfway down the stairs, his gaze fixed on Grace. "Mum," he said slowly, "you didn't tell me your guest would arrive this early." Mrs. Gregg smiled knowingly. "Leonard, meet Grace." "Grace, this is my son, Leonard Gregg." Grace's mouth fell open. She'd heard the name many times before, the billionaire CEO, always on the front page of newspapers. But seeing him in person was something else entirely. She tried to speak, but her voice trembled. Good morning, sir." Leonard nodded politely. "Good morning, Miss Grace. My mother speaks very highly of you." Grace's face flushed. "Oh, she's too kind." Mrs. Gregg smiled, clearly enjoying the moment. "Leonard, please join us for breakfast. I've told Chef to prepare something special." The three of them sat at the long dining table, where every plate gleamed under soft lighting. Grace kept fidgeting with her fingers, unsure how to behave. Leonard noticed. "Relax, Miss Grace. You look like you're about to run away." She laughed shyly. "I've just never eaten at a table this big before." He smiled faintly. "Neither had I, until my mother forced me to." That made Grace laugh, really laugh. For the first time, Leonard's expression softened. Something about her laughter felt different, real, uncalculated. Mrs. Gregg watched silently, hiding a small smile. After breakfast, Leonard offered to show Grace the garden. They walked past trimmed hedges and fountains. The air was filled with the scent of jasmine. "So," he said after a moment, "my mother told me how you helped her." Grace looked down modestly. "It was nothing, sir. I just couldn't ignore her." Leonard glanced at her. "Most people did." She smiled faintly. "Maybe they forgot that life can change. Today you have everything. Tomorrow you might need help too." Her words lingered in the air. Leonard's steps slowed. He looked at her closely as if seeing something he hadn't expected. "Do you always think like that?" he asked. She nodded. "My mother taught me that kindness is never wasted." Leonard smiled, a small, rare smile. "She must be proud of you." Grace's eyes dimmed a little. "She passed away when I was 17. "Oh, I'm sorry," he said softly. Grace shook her head gently. "It's fine. I still feel her with me, especially when I try to do what's right." For a while they walked in silence, but the silence wasn't empty. It was peaceful. Mrs. Gregg watched them from her balcony above, her heart swelling with quiet joy. That night, as Leonard sat in his study, he couldn't stop thinking about Grace. Her simplicity, her honesty. He had met countless women who tried to impress him, with makeup, money talk, or fake charm. But Grace had done none of that. Instead, she had reminded him of something he'd almost forgotten: humanity. He took out his phone, scrolling through work messages, trying to distract himself. But then his mother walked in quietly. "She's special, isn't she?" Leonard looked up, startled. "Mum, you scared me." Mrs. Gregg smiled. "I didn't have to. You're already scared of how you feel." Leonard sighed. "Mum, please, I just met her today." She chuckled softly. "Love doesn't check calendars, my dear. It checks hearts." Leonard tried to smile, but his face grew serious. "What if she's like the rest, Mum? What if she only seems good now?" Mrs. Gregg sat beside him and placed her hand over his. "Then let time test her, but don't close your heart before the test even begins." Her words stayed with him long after she left. That night Leonard found himself looking out his window, staring at the stars. Somewhere across town, Grace lay awake too, thinking about the mysterious, calm billionaire who had looked at her as if he could see into her soul. They both didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But fate was already moving its pieces, and someone else was about to enter the story. A jealous ex who would do anything to stop their growing bond. 2 weeks had passed since Grace's first visit to the Gregg mansion. What began as a simple thank you lunch had turned into several visits. Mrs. Gregg adored her company, and Leonard, though cautious at first, now found himself looking forward to every time she came by. Grace didn't act like the women he'd known before. She didn't talk about designer clothes, trips to Dubai, or luxury cars. She talked about real things: her late mother's dream to open a small restaurant, her struggles to pay rent, and her belief that kindness always finds its way back. Each story she told quietly melted the wall Leonard had built around his heart. One Sunday afternoon, they were both in the garden. Grace was laughing as Leonard tried to pluck a mango using a long stick, missing it each time. "Ah, Ogre Leonard, you better go back to boardroom O," she teased. "Market life no be your calling." He chuckled, shaking his head. "And yet you make it look so easy," Grace grinned. "Because I've done it since I was small. Lagos Market trained me." He finally caught the mango and she clapped playfully. "You see, even billionaires can learn." Their laughter filled the air until a black SUV pulled into the compound. The gate guard straightened immediately. Leonard frowned slightly. No one had told him to expect a visitor. Then the door of the SUV opened, and she stepped out. Cynthia, the ex. Her red heels clicked sharply on the tiles as she walked toward them, sunglasses on, lips curved in the kind of confident smile Grace had never seen before. "Leonard," she said softly, removing her shades. "You look different." Leonard froze for a moment, then his jaw tightened. "Cynthia, what are you doing here?" Grace glanced at them, confused but quiet. Cynthia's smile deepened. "I came to apologize. I made mistakes. I was stupid. Leonard raised his hand. "Save it. You made your choice." Cynthia's eyes darted to Grace. "Oh, and who is this?" Grace managed a small, polite smile. "I'm Grace." Cynthia's voice softened, but her eyes turned sharp. "Grace, and what exactly do you do for my Leonard?" Before Grace could reply, Leonard's tone hardened. "She's a friend, Cynthia. A good one." Cynthia's gaze flickered between them. Her smile didn't fade, but her eyes grew darker. "A friend? Interesting." Mrs. Gregg appeared on the balcony above, watching silently. She didn't like the woman's tone. Cynthia turned back to Leonard. "Please, just 5 minutes. I want to explain." He sighed reluctantly. "Fine, my study." As they walked away, Grace stood awkwardly, pretending to admire the flowers, though her heart was pounding. She didn't understand why seeing them together made her chest feel so tight. Inside the study, Cynthia dropped her polished mask for a moment. "Leonard," she said, stepping closer, "I know I hurt you, but I've changed. I don't want your money. I want you." He shook his head, stepping back. "Cynthia, you wanted my money. You sold my trust for a new car. There's no going back." Tears glimmered in her eyes. "You think that girl outside cares about you more than I do? She looks like she came here to eat your pity." Leonard's eyes hardened. "That girl has more heart than you ever did." Cynthia froze, her face tightening. "We'll see about that," she whispered, storming out of the study. Outside, Grace was just about to leave when Cynthia approached her with a smile too sweet to be real. "Grace, right?" she said, her tone silky. "You're very brave, you know. Not every woman would come to a billionaire's mansion so confidently." Grace frowned slightly. "I didn't come for money. I came because his mother invited me." Cynthia smirked. "Of course she did. She loves playing matchmaker. But trust me, this world, it eats people like you alive." Grace stared at her, unsure how to respond. "Advice from a woman who's been here," Cynthia continued, lowering her voice. "Men like Leonard don't marry girls from the market. They marry their kind." Grace's chest tightened, but she held her head high. "If kindness and honesty make me not his kind, then I'm proud of it." Cynthia's smirk faltered. "We'll see how long that pride lasts." With that, she walked off, heels clicking like tiny thunderclaps. Later that evening, Grace sat quietly at her small dining table, stirring her tea without drinking it. Amaka noticed. "Grace, you've been quiet since you came back. What happened?" Grace sighed. "I met his ex today. She said some things." Amaka frowned. "Which kin ex? The one that broke his heart before?" Grace nodded. "She's beautiful, confident, everything I'm not." Amaka leaned forward. "And wicked, I'm sure." "Grace, don't let her scare you. If that man likes you, let him like you." Grace smiled weakly. "But he's a billionaire, Amaka. I sell oranges in traffic. We don't belong in the same world." Amaka scoffed. "Since when kindness get class?" "You better stop that talk." But Grace couldn't shake Cynthia's words. Deep inside, a small voice whispered, "What if she's right?" Meanwhile, Leonard sat on the balcony of his mansion, staring at the city lights. His phone buzzed, a text from Cynthia. She doesn't belong in your world. You'll see soon." He deleted it instantly. But for the first time, doubt crept into his heart. He didn't doubt Grace's goodness. He doubted the world, the same world that once mocked his mother for pretending to be poor. Could it truly accept a billionaire marrying a woman from the streets? The question hung heavy in the night air as the sound of distant thunder rolled over the city. And by morning, the first storm would arrive, not from the sky, but from social media, where a cruel post about Grace would soon go viral. The next morning, chaos broke out online. A gossip blog posted a photo of Grace standing at the Gregg mansion gate, captioned, "Meet the market girl turned billionaire's side chick." The internet exploded. Some laughed, some pitied her, others called her a gold digger in disguise. Grace was terrified when she saw it. Her small phone buzzed non-stop, calls, messages, insults, even her neighbors started whispering. She didn't know who took the picture, but she had a strong feeling it was Cynthia. Amaka stormed into the room, holding her phone. "Grace, this thing don't go viral, oh. They're saying you're sleeping with a billionaire." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "But I didn't do anything wrong. I only helped his mother." Amaka hugged her tightly. "Calm down. Just ignore them." But ignoring the internet was like ignoring rain in Lagos. Impossible. Within hours, reporters gathered near the mansion, trying to get a comment from Leonard or Mrs. Gregg. Inside the mansion, Leonard paced back and forth angrily. "Who did this?" he shouted. Mrs. Gregg, calm as ever, sighed. "It doesn't matter who did. What matters is what we do next." Leonard clenched his fists. "She doesn't deserve this. She helped you, Mum. She never wanted anything from us." Mrs. Gregg smiled faintly. "Then maybe it's time the world hears the truth." Leonard frowned. "What do you mean?" She turned toward him, her eyes soft but firm. "Let's show them who Grace really is. Let's make them see her heart." That afternoon, Grace sat quietly in her small house, eyes swollen from crying, when she heard a knock on the door. When she opened it, she froze. Standing there was Leonard Gregg himself, with Mrs. Gregg beside him. Cameras flashed behind them, reporters trying to see what was happening. Grace stammered. "See, sir. Madam, what are you doing here?" Mrs. Gregg stepped forward, her elegant gold scarf fluttering in the wind. "My dear, you once helped me when I had nothing. Today I've come to stand by you when the world is mocking you." Leonard looked straight into Grace's eyes. "Grace, I don't care what anyone says. I know who you are, and I won't let lies destroy that." Grace's tears began to fall again, but this time from shock and relief. He gently held her hand. "Come with me." Minutes later, they stood before a crowd of reporters just outside Grace's house, microphones pointed toward them. Leonard raised his voice. "Everyone, listen carefully. This woman here, Grace, is not a gold digger. She's not pretending. She's the reason my mother smiled again after years of disappointment. She showed kindness when no one was watching." The crowd murmured. Cameras clicked rapidly. Mrs. Gregg stepped forward and added, "And for those who laughed at me when I dressed like a beggar, thank you. Because your laughter led me to this woman. She reminded me that true wealth is in the heart, not the wallet." Grace couldn't hold back anymore. She spoke softly, voice shaking. "I didn't help her because I knew who she was. I helped because that's what my mother would have wanted me to do. I don't need fame or money, just peace." The crowd went silent for a moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, applause began. A few journalists even lowered their cameras. That evening, every blog that once mocked Grace posted a new headline: "The Market Girl with a Heart of Gold, the truth about Grace and the Gregg family." Days passed. The storm slowly faded. Leonard and Grace began to spend more time together, this time freely, without fear. He took her to charity events, not to show her off, but to remind her that her kindness was worth celebrating. At first, Grace felt uncomfortable in the spotlight. She didn't wear designer clothes, didn't know which fork to use at fancy dinners. But Leonard didn't care. He looked at her the same way every time, like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking all his life. And soon, he decided he couldn't keep the truth to himself any longer. One warm Sunday evening, under the golden glow of the mansion garden, Leonard stood nervously in front of Grace. A few guests were there, Mrs. Gregg, Amaka, and a few close friends. Grace was wearing a simple white dress that flowed gently in the wind. Leonard took her hand. "Grace, you taught me that love isn't about wealth, but about worth. You gave me peace when I didn't even know I needed it." He went down on one knee. "Will you marry me?" The crowd gasped softly. Mrs. Gregg's eyes filled with tears of joy. Grace covered her mouth, shaking her head in disbelief. "Leonard, I'm just an ordinary girl." He smiled. "Then I guess I'm the luckiest ordinary man alive." Grace laughed through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you." Cheers filled the garden. Mrs. Gregg hugged them both tightly, whispering, "I knew it. I knew kindness would find its home again." Months later, their wedding became one of the most talked about events in Nigeria, not for its wealth, but for its story. The girl who once gave a beggar her last note walked down the aisle as the wife of a billionaire. And when reporters asked Leonard what made him choose her, he smiled and said simply, "Because she saw my mother as a human being, not a wallet." Under the golden sunset, Grace and Leonard sat on the same market bench where it all began. No cameras, no crowd, just them. Grace placed her head on his shoulder. "Funny, isn't it? You found your wife because your mother pretended to be poor." Leonard chuckled softly. "No, I found my wife because you refused to stop being kind." Mrs. Gregg, now a proud grandmother-in-waiting, often said the same thing to her friends. "They mocked me when I dressed like a beggar, but in that disguise I found an angel." And indeed she did. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos.